Hello, YouTube world. How are you? My name is Tiffany Jacobs, and I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself because I've never officially done so on any social media platform. But I think now is a good time for me to do so. I wanted to share with you guys a little bit about who I am and my new YouTube page that I'm very excited to get out there. So a little bit about me. I was a part of a group of students in the 1900s, in the late 1990s, that wrote the book called The Freedom Writer's Diary. This book turned into a movie and a movement in education. If you've seen the movie, then you've seen my story. My character was portrayed through the character Brandy Ross in the movie. The scene where they were on the streets with a homeless would work for food sign, and there was domestic violence in the scene. Well, that was my story that I decided to share when we were sharing those diary entries in high school. As an adult, I grew up to become a speaker. So I've traveled the world sharing my story with schools and universities so that people can uh, find the resilience in themselves to get it through any situation. Because like they say, no one's going to help, right? So we have to find it in ourselves to help ourselves. And so now I am a financial educator, and my goal is to help increase financial literacy across the United States, help people to understand how money works, how to save, how to get out of debt, how to plan for retirement, plan for situations and circumstances that you never thought would happen to your family. But, when it takes money sometimes to get out of those situations, and we have to be ready, right? They say when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? On a side note, don't you hope and pray that there's some good billionaires out there, some true Bruce Wayne, Tony Stark heroes that are willing to stand up to those billionaire bullies out there and fight the good fight for the good of all people, not a selective few, but all people matter, right? I, like many of you, will not hold my breath. I am one of the 92% fed up who understood the assignment and voted blue straight up and down the ballot because I like to be in spaces where diversity, equity, and inclusion are embraced and celebrated. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for my Freedom Writers experience. I've learned directly from civil rights leaders like the iconic and dearly departed John Lewis. Don't you wish he was here right now? But his spirit is here. John Lewis told us to get into good trouble when we hosted our 2015 Freedom Writer Teacher Symposium, where we emboldened 250 teachers across the country to invite their students to write their stories like the freedom writers did, and to bind those books up and give them to their teachers and meet us in Washington, D.C., where we delivered those books to the Secretary of Education at that time and put into the Library of Congress so that they would know, and they couldn't say they didn't know what was going on, the things that were happening on the streets, in the homes, and in the classrooms of students across this great United States. I was immersed in Holocaust education, literally surrounded by amazing survivors like Mermelstein, who wrote the book By Bread Alone. And he spent his whole life traveling back and forth to and from concentration camps to save artifacts. And he actually created a whole museum in Southern California so that we would never forget. And years later, the Freedom Writers actually were invited to speak at an event called Never Again. And we reconnected with Mel, and we were able to give him an amazing hug and tell him thank you for the lessons he taught us. And that event that we were at was actually, again, a reminder to the world to never forget the horrific atrocities of the Holocaust. Paul Rusesabagina is another friend of the Freedom Writers, and he wrote An Ordinary Man. This is his autobiography during the Rwandan genocide, where in the span of 100 days, an estimate of 1 million people lost their lives to brutal violence. Can you imagine 1 million people on the streets? Paul wrote in his book, A Sad Truth of Human Nature is that it is hard to care for people when they are abstractions, hard to care when it is not somebody you or somebody close to you. Unless the world community can stop finding ways to dither in the face of this monstrous threat to humanity, those words never again will persist in being one of the most abused phrases in the English language and one of the greatest lies of our time. Renee Firestone, a Holocaust survivor and a dear friend, said, I learned one very important lesson from the Holocaust, and that was I will never judge people collectively. She said, each individual human being has to be judged by his own merit, who he is, what he does, how he acts. We have the power to change the world by our actions, how we live our lives. And in doing so, we are changing the world one day at a time. She said, I can't believe I'm still alive. You guys, she said, I can't believe someone could live through something so diabolical. And she said, you look at the world today and you wonder, what has the world learned from the Holocaust? Why can't people live in peace with each other, respect each other? And she pleaded with us. She said, please don't forget. I'm asking you while you're still young, you have time. Please don't forget. In high school, the Freedom Riders actually met Meep Geese, the woman who hid Anne Frank. And she told us, my story is a story of very ordinary people during extraordinarily terrible times. People should never think that you have to be a special person to help those who need you. A friend of the Freedom Riders, Zlata Filipovic, wrote Zlata's Diary, A Child's Life in Sarajevo, where she matured as a young girl through the Bosnian War. She said, I think we all need to remember our capacity for empathy and through education, stretch ourselves to imagine what it is like to be in someone else's shoes and wish every person the same pair of shoes that we would like to wear. And so I tell you, as my pastor once said, do not get weary in well-doing. Like I said, I'm one of the 92% fed up. However, I'm a freedom rider to my core, and I would not honor the lessons I've learned from amazing human beings who've endured incredible atrocities and lived to share it if I did not share it with you. And I've learned a big part of the Holocaust success was that good people stood by watching, observing, shrugging their shoulders, drinking their coffee, going to cafes, like pretending everything was fine until it wasn't, until it was too late. Thinking what was happening all around them was for other people, not them, until they only saw, wait, only people who are not blonde hair and blue eyed are getting rounded up. And the situation got bigger and bigger and bigger until over 6 million people were extinguished. So if you remember anything I've said, remember this. Please do not get weary in well-doing, because evil prevails when good people do nothing. So do something, whatever it is. Be that, create a safe space, grow a garden, get into politics, teach your kids cursive, learn US history, intentionally teach Black history, and stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Because there are many people out there, you guys, children, elderly, disabled, who cannot speak for themselves. So if not now, literally when? What am I doing? What is Freedom Writer Tiffany doing? Well, I'm building a community, a respectful community, a financially educated community. I want to build with people who are ready to put their money where their mouth is, people who are ready to increase their financial education and their cash flow and help their families and their community do the same. Because that's the point, right? People who make more money get a say in the stakes and pay less in taxes in this America. So let's get our money up. Because we, the people, will have to subsidize the programs and social services that are being lost left and right. We, the people, have to support the organizations that take care of society so they don't close. And maybe they can even thrive better than before if we're all chipping in. But we cannot do that if the majority have low to no income, no proper protection, increasing amounts of debt, and have no investments for the future. We cannot wait on billionaire benevolence, or else we will literally see skeletons waiting in the masses. We must increase our cash flow and support our communities. I'm an action-oriented person. I've had enough and I've heard enough. We cannot be sitting ducks. And there are too many of us, especially my beautiful Black community, who are not ready for what is to come. The loss of healthcare, the closing of hospitals, the lack of food assistance will hit very, very hard. So I invite you guys out there, subscribe to my new YouTube channel, From the Page to Prosperity, hosted by me, freedom writer, financial educator, and voice for economic transformation, where we'll merge storytelling and strategy to help you level up on your money, mindset, and mission. Check in with me for weekly episodes. We'll share financial literacy concepts that everyone should know, and so they can build a solid financial foundation. We're going to interview change makers and experts in the financial field so that we can expand on our knowledge, because I don't know everything, guys. I was been a part of the financial literacy campaign for 8 years, but there's still a lot of things I can learn and help develop my money habits. So learn with us so we can understand how to apply that knowledge in our real lives and gain good money habits with confidence so we can have the legacy we're meant to leave. You guys, this is a great country. This is a great America. I am proud of the melting pot, this experiment that we have created. And we can really make it great if we all come together. So like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Not for me, but for you, for your family's future, and especially for the world at large. I'm Tiffany, the Freedom Writer, and I'll see you next time.